Chronic, left, right, Jaco, left, right, ooh yeah, ah boy.
That's right. That's right. Fresh back from Ethereus, your hostess with the mostest, burning like toast is Cosmonian. Back up in this thing. You dig what I'm talking about? Just took off the Ethereum goggles and the space boots, jumped up out the Atavasi. You dig what I'm talking about? About to take a sip of this Homa. Fresh from Juan Valdez himself. You dig what I'm talking about? The drink of the gods. You hear me? Indigenous to the Americas. That's right. It's your boy, Cosmonian Cal, right back at it. Like I left something. You dig what I'm talking about? Well, this is Jehovah Chronicles, number 48. We're getting up there quick and fast, y'all. We're getting up there quick and fast. I'll catch up with my brother Mally, and I got a minute to catch up with Selah, but I got a couple things in the works. Last year in 2022, my brother brought out a book. I heard nothing about it, didn't know nothing about it, never even knew it existed. If I'm not mistaken, it was published in 1892, and it is in the book is a channeling. You dig what I'm talking about? Of spirits of the past, you know, and dealing directly with the inspiration and the bringing about of the religious belief system that we call today Christianity, which also is Hebrewism. There is no difference. Which also is Judaism. There is no difference. They are, as we know, being inspired by the false god Christ, aka Luamang. You dig what I'm talking about? This is a book about its founding. You know what I mean? The brother Selah brought out, hit me to it sometime, I would say in 2022, early 2022, man, and it is a powerful read. the brothers was chopping it up behind the scenes, and everybody kind of got on this thing, man. So I had already read it, but then I jumped back in it again, man, and it's some real powerful things being said. Now it's all up to you. Do you believe in the afterlife, or what you want to call it, the spiritual life? Do you believe in mediumship? Do you believe the ability for spirits to speak through man and to write things and to paint and to do other things? And now, if this is beyond your scope of perception, you know what I mean? If you can't learn to perceive the subjective as well as the objective, well, then I don't blame you for that. You can't perceive any truth in this. But the only way to see if a thing is telling the truth is to then go back in history and try to substantiate its claims, or to allow itself to prove itself false. See, that's the thing about faithism, right? We not holding on to nothing. You know what I mean? We go and prove a thing meritoriously. You know what I mean? We're not about to just sit here and let nobody tell us nothing. You dig what I'm talking about? Especially when you know it's wrong, or especially when you don't have an idea, right? And of your own, we got to go and look subjectively and objectively and historically at a thing. You know what I mean? You weigh all options out, and then you make a conclusion from your theory, right? So this right here that we're looking at is the book called Antiquity Unveiled. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit. Take this up off of here. Hold on 1 second, y'all. You know what I mean? As always, support the channel, share the live, share it to your friends and your family. Go get your fresh clothing with no E, cashdrop.biz/fresh. Come get your Jaja gear. You dig what I'm talking about. As always, it's your boy Cosmonian. Support the channel, like, subscribe, and share the channel. You dig what I'm talking about. Let's get this thing. It helps the algorithms. You know what I mean? And let's get out here into this book that we're looking at right here. Let me get to it real quick. Called Antiquity Unveiled. You did what I'm talking about. Let me get into the chats and to the comments real quick. Shout to the creative gang. Peace to all the righteous gods and Nirvanian goddesses. Everybody, if y'all can hear me fine and clear, throw me some vortexes up in the chat. Let me know that your boy Cosmonian coming through loud and clear. You dig what I'm talking about? And we're going to jump right off into this thing real quick. I ain't going to keep you long. But as we looking at this thing, right, we going to look at a few people. We're going to look at Apollonius. We're going to look at Damis. We're going to look at a historical person that many of us know, Herod Agrippa. Yep, Herod of the Bible. We're going to look at his story, and we're going to look at the great Origen, who was the Christian writer. You did what I'm talking about, an author and scribe of the 4th century, which is the 300s CE. Origen. Some people call him Origin or Origin. I like to call him Origin. Right? So this is Antiquity Unveiled. Ancient voices from the spirit realms disclosed the most startling revelations, proving Christianity to be of heathen origin. This thing getting deep right up off the top. You dig what I'm talking about? This thing is getting deep right up off the top. So what they're saying is, through a medium, these spirits have come back over thousands of years to speak to this man about the heathen origin and to tell the truth about Christianity and its origin. Let's go back right into it real quick. Truth, crushed by priests, shall rise again. Second edition, Oriental Publishing Company, 1894. All right. Oh, they say the copyright from 1892. Let's get off to this thing real quick. Now, as I said, we're going to get into a couple of people today, so I'm going to try to hurry this up. We're going to get into Apollonius, the Nazarene. Who they say is the Jesus of the Christians. We're going to get into Damas, right? Why? Because Damas is the pupil of Apollonius, right? But look at they say that the Epistle of Timothy is written to Damas, but not only that, Damas is Timothy, just like Timothy is the homie to Paul. Damas is the homie to Apollonius, and it's gonna start it's gonna make some real crazy claims, and we're gonna look, and see if we can try to hash a little of this understanding from what the book is gonna say. We're also gonna look at Vespasian. These are people we can prove historically actually existed. We're going to look at Vespasian, the Roman emperor. Yes, that guy. We're going to look at also Herod Agrippa II. Yes, that Herod. Right? And what he has to say about the true origins or the true version of the trial of Paul, as it's given in Acts, and I think it started in Acts 21 through 24. You dig what I'm talking about? The books 21, 22, 23, and 24 chapters, excuse me. And we're going to look into, once again, origin. If we got a little time, we'll jump into Josephus. Listen, man, this is some deep stuff. Let's drop down to Apollonius. Let's see, and remember, this is coming through mediums. Okay, so you can think however you want to. You know what I mean? Is it all fake? Is these people going through all this stuff just to make this up? They didn't get this spirit stuff. They're just making it up. And how would they get this understanding in 1892? Right? So let's check this out. I also thought this was interesting. Look at this. Zoroaster. So we're going to get down in here and check off into what they talking about. You dig what I'm talking about? I think it started on page 14. This is the preface. So let's get right into it. Right? Let's look at what some of the people around the time was saying about this book. Right? At the Banner of Light, Boston, Massachusetts, the historical data given are in themselves a marvel. The book is bristling with points, deals with a wide range of subjects, and quotes extensively from well-known authors. It shows where the early Christians found the myths and rites which they adopted and relabeled, and which the Western world now knows as Christianity. April 24th, 1893. This is one of the most remarkable books that has ever been found, that has found its way to our literary table. We can hardly describe and can hardly be described without a repetition of its own history. The contents are remarkable to the last degree, and any one man reading them and comparing the messages with the comments can see that no one intellect could have been the author of all. Although the comments can be seen and felt, the intellectual methods and idioms of the one mind that did the work, but of the 160 papers from other assumed authors, no two of them are alike in any respect, a fact that will puzzle critics more than anything else about this book. So what they're saying is, even if you just think it came from the mind of the author, he was saying, how is he doing 160 different personalities who have different speech patterns, different points of views at different times, people and information that most men did not know? How is it revealing it all in different times and through 160 different points of view? You dig what I'm saying? This is what he's saying. He's saying that alone will puzzle most critics as to the authenticity of the books, or you know what I mean, the as anything that comes up out of the book. How could one man do this? You see, there can only be one of two positions, which we shall not pretend to decide upon in any way. Either that the whole book is an ingenious and exceedingly learned and able invention, or has a basis for its contents and argument. Its claims at once raised the question that is now so rife over all the world. So in 1894, they was asking about the credibility of the so-called Christian text, like everybody is and should be doing today. Its claims at once raised the question that is now so rife over all the world of the credibility of occult methods and testimony. No scholar can read this book without intense interest, for its contents contain within themselves intrinsically so much that is plausible and so thoroughly scholarly and circumstantial in statement that the frank-minded are perplexed as to which category to assign it. Let's get down here to real quick. Now look at this. Look at the face of Jeebus. Jeebus! This is Apollonius, or what they say is a sketching or painting of Apollonius of Tyana. This is your Jesus. So when they try to tell you Jesus is white, they ain't lying. Even the guy Jesus was made up off of, both Christian deities, Serapis and Jesus, they show themselves as white boys. Look at that. And the claim is for my Essene Nazarene brothers is that Apollonius came amongst the Essenes and created the Nazarene. But let's get off into it. Apollonius of Tyana, the Jesus of Nazareth. So they already got him mixed with the Jesus of Nazareth. St. Paul, and John the Reveler of the Christian scriptures returns to earth as a spirit and explains the mysteries that have concealed the theological deception of the Christian hierarchy. So who we know as Jesus of Nazareth, Paul, and John the Reveler are all tales about Apollonius of Tyana. Let's get off into this real quick. Okay. Okay, let's get to reading, y'all. This is Apollonius of Apollonius. Before entering upon this all-absorbing subject, it is simply proper, by way of explanation, to inform the reader that previous to the date given below, Mr. Roberts had been having regular weekly sit-ins with the medium through whom these communications were received. All right. You dig what I'm talking about? Shalom to everybody in the house. You dig what I'm talking about? Shalom to everybody in the house. Let's get right back to it, though. But in reference to the sitting on May 25th, 1881, this is right around the same time Owaspy came out. 1881, same month, if I'm not mistaken. May, June, 1881, Owaspy was done. Same time. That's crazy. It's a lot of light coming in 1881. Mr. Roberts, let me say, but in reference to the sitting on May 25th, 1881, Mr. Roberts records in his notes the following: having been informed who would next manifest through the medium, the time having arrived, I felt a thrill of astonishment and delight of the greatest intensity, and the very air of the humble apartment in which we sat seemed filled with a mighty spiritual power. So look what the man is saying about what's going on about this one reading, right? Where 160 people spoke. He's saying the whole air seemed filled with a mighty spiritual power as the name of Apollonius of Tyana was announced. Now, y'all got to understand what's going on at this time. In mediumship, right, and how the angels explain it. Let me show you. In mediumship, right, and how the angels explain it is they use the human being to draw power from, and they make what is called a throat box, a spiritual mouth and tongue, and you dig what I'm talking about, to talk through. So this quote unquote ectoplasmic thing makes a box, and the angel draws from the man and speaks through the created throat box, right? So this is what's going on. You know what I mean? To try to wrap your mind around what's happening in these sessions. You dig what I'm talking about? The angels describe it as such. You see what I'm saying? And so when he's saying that the name of Apollonius of Tyana was announced, right? He's hearing it broadcasted out of what is called a spirit voice box, right? But not like the electrical voice boxes we have today. This is literally made by the spirit from drawing from the man. You dig what I'm talking about? And a voice came up out of that. And that voice was not the medium's and was not Apollonius's. This is what we got to understand what's going on. And we greeted for the first time by the great Cappadocian sage. So when they say Paul was a Roman, this is how he could be a Roman and so-called Hebrew at the same time, because Apollonius of Tyana, who created the Essenes through the, created the Nazarenes through the Essene doctrine, is what they're about to tell you, right? Can be applied to as a Hebrew. But this is how, if he was Paul, he would be already a citizen of Rome because he was born in Cappadocia. So they say, and we were greeted for the first time by the great Cappadocian sage and philosopher, as well as the greatest teacher. Damn. Look how they talking about him. As well as the greatest teacher and benefactor that ever drew to himself the love, admiration, and reverence of the civilized world. Apollonius, the spirit-anointed Christ of the Orient. His communication was as follows. Let our salutation be the survival of truth and its conquest of superstition. Right? Now look at the story and compare this to what we know and what have we been commonly told about the invented character in 325, 326 AD of the life of Jesus. He said, I was born. Now, this is Apollonius talking. You dig what I'm talking about? This is Apollonius talking. Dig this. Dig this, because this is about to get crazy deep. I was born according to the Christian calendar on the 16th day of February, AD 2. Supposedly 2 years after the invented life of Jesus, okay? Of wealthy parents, right? And was educated until my 26th year in general philosophy and literature, when I served for 6 years under Eusenes of Heracles, learning the Pythagorean philosophy. After acquiring all I could learn from the teachings of that philosopher, who was Eusenes, who was teaching Pythagorean philosophy, or the Pythagorean theory, right? I went to Antioch, and from there to Jerusalem, on account of some wonderful physical manifestations of the Spirit power. He said, of some wonderful physical manifestations of spirit power taking place through my then young mediumship, which persons living in Jerusalem had heard of. My entrance to that city was hailed. So, just like in the story where they was hailing Jesus for coming into Jerusalem and all that stuff, hailing him, he was supposed to come on the donkey back and all that stuff. He's saying because of the his young mediumship. Now, understand what Apollonius is really saying. He's saying, I'm a medium no different than this medium. Just because of some of the spirit manifestations that I did, they came in touting me up. You dig what I'm talking about? And he said, and he was hailed, as it had been alleged, the entrance of Jesus of Nazareth was hailed with hosannas. You dig what I'm talking about? This is what they talking about at the in the biblical text when he come into the city and they saying Hosanna, 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 right? With hosannas and songs of praise to one who came in the name of the Lord. And now, mark particularly. Now, this is him talking what I say. So he's saying, listen to what I say. This took place when I was 33 years of age. Whew. I want you to pay the closest attention to what I shall herefore set. Okay, we listening to Apollonius, we listening. You will, by examining Josephus's work, The War of the Jews, see that concerning the siege of Jerusalem, a certain prophecy was given, or words were spoken, as is alleged by Jesus of Nazareth, which were fulfilled. You will find what I refer to in Matthew 23rd chapter, 23rd chapter, 35th verse, where the so-called Jesus is made to have asserted that that generation were guilty of all the blood that had been shed from Abel to Zacharias, the son of Baruch, slain between the temple and the altar exactly 34 years after the alleged death of Jesus. So he's saying in the story of Josephus, he's saying that Josephus is saying Jesus made a claim, right? But look what he said. You will find, I refer to 23rd chapter. Let's go look at that. Let's go look at that. Let's go look at that, y'all. Hold on. Let's go check this out. KJV. All right. Quick now. Matthew 23. Let's go down here and look what he's talking about. Let's click the Strong's on too. That upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. So this is what he's talking about. He's saying, he said this. Let's check it out. Where the so-called Jesus is made to have asserted that that generation were guilty of all the blood that had been shed from Abel to Zacharias, the son of Baruch, slain between the temple and the altar exactly 34 years after the alleged death of Jesus. And you will find this prophecy then fulfilled, while Jesus is made to have said that it was fulfilled in his time. And here you have an example of the unauthenticity of the Christian Gospels. All this I learned at the very time at which Flavius Josephus wrote the story of the wars of the Jews, for I was employed and used by the Emperor Vespasian. Oh, he's saying you can prove that I said it because I was there. And remember, Josephus gets saved by a mystic. You dig what I'm talking about? Sometime during this war. Watch this. Hold on. Wait a minute. Whoa. He's saying he the one said that at that time. And this is where Flavius Josephus got it from, because he said it, but he didn't find out till at the time. Watch this. All this I learned at the very time at which Flavius Josephus wrote the history of the War of the Jews, for I was employed and used by the Emperor Vespasian as his oracle. Oh, when in the same time when in the same time as this medium is who now sits before you, when in the same state. Oh, so he's saying just how this medium, I'm coming through him and he's my medium. I was a medium for the Emperor Vespasian and an oracle at that time. And how he knows, because he lived during the time of the War of the Jews. Oh, hold on. Let's see. But you know me, we got to go look into it. Let's go see if Vespasian, because no, Vespasian didn't write nothing about no Jeebus. But did he write anything about Apollonius? It shouldn't be there if the nigga didn't do this shit. It shouldn't be there. Hold on. Look at this. Apollonius and the emperors. Now, how is it these people of the first part of the first century are writing about this great Cappadocian sage and scribe at the same time they supposed to see a Jesus, but they writing about Apollonius and nobody ever says anything about Jesus during the same time and in the same places? How is that? Because Jesus didn't exist. He's an amalgamation made up in the Nicene councils. But Apollonius go on to prove and say, nigga, I was there. This is how I can prove the statement made supposedly by Jesus that was written by Josephus, by Flavius Josephus, because I was there. And I gave that. Oh, listen, look at what he say. This is what he say. It shouldn't be there. He said, in this biography of the Neo-Pythagorean sophist Apollonius of Tyana, Flavius Philostratus describes his subject as a king maker. Uh-oh. Why they call him king maker? Let's go and see. An emperor's guide and a mentor, an oracle, an important historical figure who influenced and even changed governments. He recounts Apollonius' public opposition to Nero, his instigating the Vindex revolts, his making Vespasian emperor. Look at this. This is crazy. Making Vespasian emperor, his influence, and on the friendship with Vespasian, Titus, and Nerva. Now, all these people in their writings, which come out through Titus, you did what I'm talking about, come out in the writings of Nero also. None of them speak of Jesus, but they always speak of the Apollonius. But you know what? They either call him Apollonius, but in Josephus, he calls him Christos. Watch this though. This shit get deep. And his possible involvement in the assassination of the tyrant Domitian. Now, I don't think but we take everything at face value, right? Apollonius first visited Rome in Nero's reign. Philostratus tells us that Demetrius, the cynic, drew infamous attention to both Apollonius and himself at the opening ceremony of the new gymnasium, which Nero dedicated in 61. Oh, and it's at the same time that he's saying, remember, Nero came before Vespasian. Watch this shit. Shortly before this, according to Philostratus, Apollonius had been granted permission by the then consul Celsus to enter all the temples in Rome to preach his reforms. The sage caused somewhat of a religious revival in that city. Wow. At least until this dramatic intervention of Demetrius at the baths. Gelinus, the Praetorian prefect, immediately exiled Demetrius, who went to live in Athens. Could this Demetrius also be Damis? Hold on, let's just look. Let's just look. Remember, this guy Demetrius, after some event, went to go live in Athens. Let's just remember that. Then he arrested Apollonius and charged him of piety against Nero. Oh, this is the story of so-called Jesus? I mean, Paul, where Paul gets brought before the Roman courts? Is this also because he went before the Praetorian prefect, which means Pontius Pilate? Hold on, wait a minute. A fatal plague was then arrested by Apollonius and charged of impiety against Nero. A fatal plague was then prevalent in the city, and Nero himself was suffering from a swollen larynx. Apollonius had denounced the populace for its folly in supplicating the gods on Nero's behalf. However, through deft retorts and a subtle piece of magic, Apollonius succeeded in gaining his unconditional release. Oh. Nevertheless, when Nero soon afterwards prohibited the teaching of philosophy in public and set out for Greece, Apollonius too left Rome and continued his travels. Later, Apollonius gained and met Demetrius, this time in Athens, where the cynic had continued to live since his banishment from Rome. So runs Philostratus' account of Apollonius stay in Rome under Nero. So runs Philostratus' accounts of Apollonius stay in Rome under Nero. Okay. Chronology of Philostratus' narrative is puzzling. Telesinius was consul in 66, not 61. Tigellinus was appointed Praetorian prefect in 62, and therefore obviously could not have arrested Apollonius in that role a year earlier. Okay. So we find him what he's saying about Vespasian to be true. He's saying, let's go back a bit. Let's just go back a little bit. All this I learned at the very time at which Flavius Josephus wrote the history of the wars of the Jews, for I was employed and used by the Emperor Vespasian as his oracle, right? And is this why they call him the kingmaker? Because he probably was giving that boy some great advice. Who now sits before you, And he's saying, just like I was doing just what this medium is doing right now before you, I was doing that too. That's what he's saying. Never mind. Let's see what he said. Never during my mortal life did I desire to be worshipped after death. Uh-oh. That sounds Jehovian to me. That sounds like you had that real light upon you to me. Because we know what the prophets or the Most High didn't do. They never asked to be praised, nor did they want to be praised. So that's a point. That's point number 3 so far, if y'all keeping count, about the truthness or towards the leaning or gleaning of truth from what Apollonius is saying. He not worshiped today, right? He not, and what he's saying is he never wanted to be, and that is in truth, in line with the true prophets of the Most High, right? Watch this. Never during my mortal life did I desire to be worshipped after death. Never did I, as a mortal man, teach such a doctrine. But I was deified after my death. 9 epistles were made by a present to me by Heracles. Excuse me. Hold on. 9 epistles. The epistles of Paul were made a present to me by Heracles of Tahila, India, or rather between Babylon and India, whom was a satrap, or like a king, in those days. Those epistles contained all that is embraced in the present epistles, claimed to have been written by St. Paul. Ooh! Dang. Apollonius just said what we got as the so-called epistles of St. Paul, which somehow, mind you, predate the Gospels. For a nigga who never even met Jesus or Apollonius. You dig what I'm talking about? Damn. He said, whoa. He said, and from what I have learned as a spirit, I conclude that I am both Jesus and hold on, let me go back. First of all, he say he got it as a present from Heracles of Tahila in India, or rather between Babylon and India, what we would call Mesopotamia and India, which would be Elamite country, also Harappian country, right? He's saying he got it from there, right? Or rather between Babylon and India, who was a satrap in those days. Those epistles, we're going to have to look that up. But we're going to keep reading for right now, right? Heracles. And I wonder if it's spelled different. Probably. Let me see. Hold on, let me get up. Oh, my damn letter. Like my little split of ting, you know what I mean? Let's throw some jams on real quick. Hold on. Let's bang it out real quick. So I'm gonna light my little split of ting. Get into it. Oh yeah. You dig what I'm talking about? If y'all getting a little something out of this, man, some revealing stuff, you dig what I'm talking about? Let me get a one up in the chat. If y'all getting some revealing stuff, man, y'all starting to see that the reason we can't find historical Jesus in the first century is because the story that we find Jesus is made up off of is in many parts applied, is really stolen from the life of Apollonius. You dig what I'm talking about? Now I'm trying to tell y'all, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not telling you to believe it. I'm just telling you to lay what his information is to what is against the truth and how he goes about dismantling the doctrine. If this is fake, it is an NG. How would the medium know? It's impossible to know this information and then tie it all together to a statement that was made to a man we know was real because he was recorded by Vespasian. Ooh-wee. It's leading credence to what's being said in the doctrine. So now we done just found out that who we think is Jeebus is Apollonius and Christianity, because it's said to be of that time from the death in the time of that temple thing with Baroque, right? That we find in Flavius Josephus said to come out of Jesus' mouth. Bro say he said it. He's saying, I was there in that time, and this is how I prove it. Dang. Now we find out that the epistles that's being applied to Paul, which is starting to look like this New Testament was written through. We know that it was written through the Romans, but was it written through the Flavian line? This is where the line of Luamong Light ran through to keep the documents and the birth people like Constantine through people like Flavius Josephus, who is Areopizo. Could they be family? Right? And then we find out that the first popes come up out of the Roman Pope. The popes come up out of the Roman Caesars. And the first Roman Caesar was kin to Flavius Josephus, Arius Piso. You dig what I'm talking about? That's right. Support the channel, man. Get them likes out. Shout out to Bronze Yog. You dig what I'm talking about? So, look, let's get right back into it real quick. It's saying right here that, let's just read. Let's go back. He's saying, first of all, I ain't never be asked to be praised. They deified me after my death. Right? I got the 9 epistles, and what they portraying as the 9 epistles of Paul really came from me, who he got from another nigga named Phrates. You dig what I'm talking about? Excuse me. Hold on 1 second, y'all. So, okay, right back at it, y'all. You dig what I'm talking about? Let's get back into this real quick. All right. Now, remember, this is the spirit of Apollonius or Taliana coming to 2022 years later, basically, or you did what I'm talking about, 2,000 years later, basically, you can say, from the first century, coming back to speak through a medium. And he said he did the same stuff and telling you that the epistles of Paul, and look what he said. In those that he said those epistles contained all that is embraced in the present epistles claimed to have been written by St. Paul. And from what I have learned as a spirit, I conclude that I am both Jesus and St. Paul of the Christian scriptures. He said, flattering enough to my vanity, but the ruin of my happiness. So he's saying, man, I'm not even happy about, don't put that, if it's towards my vanity, towards my selfishness, you know what I mean? If he said it's flattering enough to that, he was like, but man, I'm not happy about this because I don't want to be tied to that bullshit. Deep. They in the heavens saying, man, don't tie me to this chicanery. They know what happened with Luamon. They know what happened with the scribes. You dig what I'm talking about? Apollonius said, I didn't even know he had put that in there till I seen it in the Times. Right? He said, this ain't cool with him. It's the ruin of his happiness. It is my duty here to confess all that I can bring to recollection, in order that spiritual darkness may disperse and the light of truth shine in. Jeebles. There is one thing that I desire particularly to speak of, and that is the ultimate of spirit power on earth. All materialists claim that it is impossible to restore that which is dead to life. No, okay, let's read that back again. There is one thing that I desire particularly to speak of, and that is the ultimate of spirit power on earth. All materialists or all Osarians, all people who can caught up in just what they can see, claim that it is impossible to restore that which is dead to life. Upon this point, upon my own knowledge, not what somebody else is saying, I assert that if you have developed your mortal body to that extent, not into what is called moral purity, but into a holy, trusting love with a heart that beats for humanity, if such a person can come in contact with a fresh young body from which the spirit has just been driven out before it could accomplish its mission, take that body by the hand and with mighty will, with mighty will, arrest that spirit. He can force it back to the body. He can force it back to the body. A spirit that just left the body, you can arrest it, hold it, catch it, and then force it back to the body it once inhabited and make it fulfill its mission. So does that mean as soon as you fulfill your mission, your life is over with? And does that mean there are times that there must be truly accidents, things that are not, you know what I mean, governed per se by the God or creator, that are just allowed to happen? You dig what I'm talking about? Because somebody didn't buckle up a seatbelt, or somebody didn't check a tire, or you know what I mean? But they blame all this stuff on creator. You know what I mean? It must be heavy to be the creator. You dig what I'm talking about? But it's dope that he can. So it's even proves his more greatness, that he can hold this up in people's ignorance. You know what I mean? Even during it. You know? But look what Apollonius is saying. He said you can force it back into the body. It once inhabited, and make it fulfill its mission. 3 things are necessary to do this. First, a perfectly healthy organism. That does not imply a strong or powerful one. It means an organism in which the spirit is greater than the body. The excess of spirit producing this result. Here, the controlling spirit caused the form of the medium to rise, and extending his arms at full length to the right and left, said, so look, the dude is on the couch, knocked out, and the spirit is moving the body of the medium while the medium is knocked out. He said the spirit addressing you is not confined to the limits of the form you see before you. Confirming what creators say, that I made you a 2 parts, the seen and the unseen. You dig what I'm talking about? And both from me. It not only fulfills the physical, it not only feels the physical organism you see, but extends far around it as well. In the time when I lived in the physical, in the mortal form, the old was dying out and the new being born. By this I mean that superstition, gods, and all such ideas were on the wane, and man was seeking, as he is today, for something more practical and beneficial. It was not through any qualities that I possess different from or superior to those of any other man that I accomplished what I did, but through the spiritual power within me. Wait a minute, this is starting to sound like what Jeebus was saying. Jeebus said, ye are gods, and the thing. No, he said, the things that I do, you can also do, and even greater. And here we got the man that they purport to be, Jeebus, telling you that I'm really no different than y'all. You know what I mean? Which is purported to be said by Jeebus. Hell of a coincidence. This fact I want to have especially marked. He did what he did, right? But through the spiritual power within and with him, right? So he let you know, even though it's coming through me, it's not even me. It's the spirit working through the man. I just had to stay clean. This is why the dietary law is so important, because it's without the dietary law and the force of will or control over your lower or corporeal parts, you can't raise through the heavens. You stay low until you dominate that. You dig what I'm talking about? Until you dominate your physical side in your life, you won't raise super high up. You dig what I'm talking about? You can't do what Apollonius and them was doing. and you got bullshit going on. You dig what I'm talking about? You can't do what Mithra and them was doing. You dig what I'm talking about? If your body not right. Does that mean you can't do it? No. But once your diet is right, these things are just added to you. So you can do it and do it even better. Once you in the same condition he is, because it's not the man doing the work, it's the spirit working through the man. Huh? That's explained in Owaspy. He said, let's check it out. This fact I want to have especially marked. The highest sensitive mortals living in any age or generation and who are living the nearest in accord with nature's divine law of truth will bring forth a child who may be the so-called savior of that generation. Those men and women who utter the highest and most beneficial truths to their fellow mortals are the saviors of their times. Let that sink in, create a gang. Let that sink in for a second. What does it say? Those men and women who utter the highest and most beneficial truths to their fellow mortals are the saviors of their time. First, starting with who? How do we know that he is correct? Create a gang. Who we start with saving? Us first. What we always say? Create a gang, you bring them, we raise. Starting to change existence for you. Just like it changed existence for you when you found out God wasn't the creator. Ooh, when you find out you the savior. Whoa. You dig what I'm talking about? When you find out you the judge. Whoo. Man, it's a beautiful thing that this brother Apollonius is letting out. He's saying, man, I ain't no different than you. I have this to say. He said, further, I have this to say. I retired voluntarily, for I was neither ostracized nor banished for anything I had done, said, or written to the same island to which is alleged the St. John of Revelations went in the year 69 and 70 AD. I there wrote what occurred through me in a trance state. Not knowing what I wrote. An almost identical story with that attributed to the so-called St. John the Revelator. That story, look at his claim. That story was nothing more than an attempt of the spirit world to give the truth of the spirit life through a mortal organism in a day and generation that was not right to receive it. That is, the medium chosen for the expression of the teachings of the spirit was too much imbued with the mysticism of Judea and neighboring countries to be well suited for that purpose. What is known to you moderns as the Ante-Nicene Library. The Nicene Library contained documents, some of which are still extant, that fully warrant you in challenging the translators of today as to the correctness of their production. Let them examine, if they dare, the manuscripts referred to, and they will find what is now being published erroneous, and in many particulars, they have followed too much what their ancestors translated without having translated for themselves. Ooh. Now, let's get into this. Now in here I declare that the Christian Gospels were all preached by me. Preached at Jerusalem, preached at Ephesus, preached at Athens, preached at Philippi, preached at Rome, preached at Antioch, preached at Alexandria, preached at Babylon. Damn. In all those countries I preached. And by manipulations and certain qualities developed in me, Suis. I healed the sick. I did that. Apollonius, not Jehovih. Restored the sight of the blind. And the way here set forth, even raised the dead. Is this the story of Jesus brought back Lazarus? Damn. Apollonius said, I did all that. What? I would try to make this raising of the dead plainer. So he know this is a simple thing to him, but he trying to explain it to niggas like us who just can't get it. Man. You dig what I'm talking about? This is kind of like a great boxer, right? He's trying to explain a 4-punch combination to a person with no rhythm. You know what I mean? So he said, I will try to make this raising the dead plainer, because he's trying to say this ain't no big thing. If a child, a youth, or a maiden whose body is fresh, full of vigor and perfection, and whose spirit has become detached from it, in that case, I hold that one whose power is great and whose will, here we go again with this will. And remember, it's through the will of the Ethereal beings that they took upon a semblance of flesh. Huh? Don't they tell you to dominate the chemical makeup of the planet? Well, this is how you manifest things. Manifestation ain't a thing outside of you. Right? They always tell you your mouth bringing it, mouth create, the words create, they know it is the will. Huh? That create, because you even got to want to speak the words. Where does want come from? Will. While that body is yet warm can cause the spirit to return and continue to inhabit that organism. Okay, they tell me they do it with the animals. The real Jeebus, Apollonius, is saying, shit, if you catch them in enough time and they got enough spirit power and it's fresh, I can catch their ass and bring the spirit right back to the body. And you like Lazarus walking about that thing. But in fact, was he dead? The spirit wasn't dead. It was just the body. Huh? Proving once again that the unseen rules and dominates the scene. He say, look what he say. Look what he say. Look what he say. He say, in that case, I hold that one whose power is great and whose will is indomitable. This is called gameness. It's that dog in you that I'm going to get it. Huh? Who got a spirit like that? Huh? While that body is yet warm, can cause the spirit to return and continue to inhabit the organism. In this way, I know, he ain't say I think, he said I know the dead can be restored to life. Dang. Let's go down and let's say what Apollonius is dropping on us, because this head, we might have to bring him out in a whole nother, you dig what I'm talking about? We might have to hold out on Herod and them and bring them back in a series or something, because this is crazy. When I lived on earth, all the philosophers who taught men to expect redemption, according to more ancient authorities, taught that such redemption was to happen at that time. Same thing they telling us now. We at the end time, you got to redemption, all that shit they talking to us about now. We in the end times, all that. From what I have been able to learn as a spirit, I was the person who was designed by spirits to fulfill that mission. By what spirits? By the Lewis? I claim no preeminence over anyone. I only say that my mortal body contained more spirit than the average of man, or even the most highly developed among them at the time I existed in mortal flesh. He's saying I was just the highest at my time. I was one of the highest at that time. So what he's also hinting towards right here is saying that there are people who even higher than he is can do greater works. Wow. My history, as it comes down to you moderns, written by one Damas, Timothy, and my others afterwards, in regard to the main incidents of my life, is correct. But in regard to the glamour, romance, and mystery of the narrative, it has no relation to me whatever. The latter was the work of my disciples and followers after my death and was promulgated by them. One thing more I am through with. He says, okay, let me look. One thing more, and I am through with my communication. It is this: almost every picture that in modern times is recognized as the likeness of Jesus is the identical portrait of Apollonius Vitelliana, painted in the reign of Vespasian. That emperor consulted me. I was the oracle of his camp. I was the means of saving the life of Flavius Josephus, where he asked him how it came that Josephus, we here asked him how it came that Josephus had made no mention of the fact in his Jewish war. He replied, the Jewish hierarchy of that day had a horror and dislike of even their best friends who were not of their faith. And Josephus, being a Pharisee of the straightest sect, Sadducees, was even more than usually prejudiced against a Gentile like myself. Jeebus just called himself a Gentile. By this, I do not mean that the Pharisees were bad people, but that they were so devoted to their religion as to be bitterly bigoted and prejudiced against those who differed from them. It is my opinion It is my opinion from all I can learn as a spirit that all the Christian gospels are borrowed from, and in fact, that their origin was the books that I brought from India. This is the Aquarian Gospel, obtained in parts from Phrates, who was king of Tahia. I think those books were used by the Platonists, eclectics, and Gnostics of Alexandria about 150 years after, so roughly 240 BC. I died in the year 99, so that would be roughly 250. My bad. At Ephesus, and was 97 or 98 years of age, although some have enlarged the period of my earthly life to 150 years. The originals of the four Gospels I obtained through one Hiram Ermandi of Tahila, who took me forward into further India. All right? This is where your Gospels, this is where your Christian Gospels come from. Watch this. Hold on. We're going to have to show you where the Christian Gospels come from, too. This is dope. Right? But let's go look. Who took me forward into further India. They were written in characters not unlike those used by the Chinese. On thin paper. Remember, they said they came up out of the East with 3 languages. The so-called Chinese, the Panic, you dig what I'm talking about, and the Persian. But they wrote them how they wanted to. So remember, they in India, but the letters they wrote looked like those used by the Chinese. They that treated of the 4 stages of the life of Buddha. The first to his incarnation and birth. The second to his childhood and youth. The third to his mature life. And the fourth to his old age and death. Watch this. This is about to get deep. These books I attained at Singapore, at the extreme point of India, on the strait between India and Sumatra. Watch this. Hold on, let me see if I can get into my thing real quick. Let's look for a far southern region. Between, let's look and see what it say again. That he obtained these books at Singapore, at the extreme point of India, right? On the strait between India and Sumatra. We hear mentioned to him the fact that 1 week before we had received a communication from a spirit purporting to be Ophilas, the Christian bishop of the Goths, who said he had translated from Samaritan manuscripts the epistles and gospels to which he, Apollonius, had referred into the Gothic tongue, and that the manuscripts that he translated were the writings of himself after the originals he obtained at Singapore, India. To which he replied, one Hegesippus made copies from my translations and modified versions of the originals in the Samaritan tongue, and Ophilus copied from the manuscripts of Hegesippus. I wrote in the Hebraic Samaritan tongue, which was the language of my country. Now, so the ancient Hebraic tongue was spoken by the Herodian people already. So that means it's just Canaanitish. It's ancient Canaanite. Oh. Because remember, he's from Cappadocia. That's Greek. That's in what is modern day Turkey. They already spoke Hebraic Samaritan. That's dope. Hold on. Let me see. I wanted to show y'all this real quick about this isthmus, this land. Hold on, let me blow it up a little bit. Spoken about right here. I obtained these books at the extreme point of India, on the strait between India and Sumatra. Let's go look and see what that strait is. At the southern end of India. So what they're also admitting to you that all this land right here, hold on. All this land right here. Did you see? These are man-made lines. But all up in here to Afghanistan, Pakistan, all the way down to here to Malaysia. All this land. And mind you, what happens every time a continent touches a continent, family? What do we get? Mountains. Guess what's all up in here? Oh, the biggest mountains in the world. And where these three places touch, hold on. Right up in here, a little bit up in here, the biggest, which is, well, actually, it's a little bit over here and over here. But where the three places touch, the three great land masses touch, we get the biggest mountains in the world. But it also let us know that all India, extends all the way down here, all into the islands. All this is India, right? And it also goes on to let us know that a part of this is ancient Persia at an ancient time, all the way up in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, all this shit that's all up in here was anciently Shem. This became Persia, and so did this part. It also says in a time roughly about 4500 BC, these people, about 4000 BC, these people from down here in Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Burma, all these people down in here, the Malay people down in here came up here and mixed in with these people in Persia. But look what he says. At the extreme point of India, on the strait between India and Sumatra. This is Sumatra. So he included this, all this down here as India. This is the Strait of Malacca. So what he's saying is he traveled all the way from where he was born at. And remember, he was in Jerusalem when he went on this trip. And he came all the way down here. All right. But he knew a dude that ruled this area in between India and Babylon. So he went to there, holler at his homeboy Phrates. But look where he's saying he obtained the books way down here. Way down here. Huh. Interesting. Right? The Straits of Malacca. Okay. Hebraic Samaritan tongue. Let's just go and look that up real quick so we can clear that up. And I want y'all to watch how the language look. Uh-oh. I think they already know something. I think they already know something. Look what it say up here, Phoenicia. Let's go tap on into this real quick. Hold on, let's go back one more time. Let's get a definition on it before we go into it. Get a definition on it. Okay. Let's go back. The Paleo-Hebrew script. Paleo-Hebrew, Proto-Hebrew, or Old Hebrew is the writing system found in Canaanite inscriptions from the region of biblical Israel and Judah. It is considered to be the script used to record the original text of the Hebrew Bible due to its similarity to the Samaritan script. It's used by the Samaritans for religious writings, including the Samaritan Pentateuch, writings in Samaritan Hebrew, and for the commentaries and translations in Samaritan Aramaic, and occasionally in Arabic. Samaritan is a direct descendant of the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. Now look at this. That's the Phoenician text. Called Samaritan. Paleo-Hebrew. Which was a variety of the... I ain't even got to make it up. I ain't got to make it up. So this is what he said he was speaking at the time. The Paleo-Hebrew, which is direct from the Phoenician alphabet, known in modern times from the what? Canaanite and Aramaic inscriptions. Come on, man. Come on, y'all. He dropping some heat. You dig what I'm talking about? Also goes to show that if Abram and them is from Persian stock and not Canaanite stock, it goes on to prove that this was being spoken already in the Canaanite era, which would include Turkey. So, which means that modern day Hebrews and those who speak the Hebraic or Samaritan tongue, right, are not even of the stock. Abraham and them encountered this tongue. They spoke the Persian, which is given to us in cuneiform. Dropping more, like just adding proof to what Apollonius is saying, which is, it makes sense. It makes sense. Let's go on and see what it says. Here the control of the medium became wholly exhausted. Bidding us a hasty and most benign adieu, he left the medium more exhausted than we had ever seen him at any previous sitting. No other control of the medium was possible, and thus ended a spirit interview, which is destined to mark an era in human progress, never transcended, if ever equaled in importance and interest to all classes of human race. We publish such facts as are concealed by ample authority to be historically established concerning Apollonius. There is much that it would be desirable to add as the result of our own researches, but we will confine ourselves mainly to the current history of his life and labors as the best condensed sketch of the life of Apollonius that we have been able to find. We have chosen that of Penny Encyclopedia, London, 1834. We feel that we may safely assume as true and proven the following historical statements concerning Apollonius. Now, this is what they found to be true after, because they didn't know who Apollonius was. But searching after, this is what they found, and this is what they're saying they found to be historically proven statements about him, right? He's saying he was born of wealthy parents at Tyana in Cappadocia. Let's show where Cappadocia is. Let's show where Cappadocia is. Remember, I told you it's in Turkey, but let's just look where it is. Okay, just so we can all get a good look and wrap it in our mind when we say Cappadocia. When we say Tyana, this is what we're talking about, right? Okay. Born of wealthy parents at Tyana in Cappadocia at the very period when it was alleged the Christian's Jesus was born in Bethlehem. At the age of 12 years, he was sent to Tarsus in Cilicia, the alleged birthplace of the home of St. Paul. Not liking the frivolous habits of the people of that city, with his father's consent, he retired to Ig, a town a short distance from Tarsus, where he remained until after attaining to man's estate. There he studied every system of philosophy and perfected himself in rhetoric and general literature. This is what they saying they was able to find proven in history. You know, you got to show up. You dig what I'm talking about? There he perfected himself in rhetoric and general literature. There he took up his residence in the temple of Asclepius, so famed for its miraculous cures, was initiated by the priests of that temple in their mysteries and performed cures that astonished not only the people, but even those masters of the art of healing. He there finally decided to adopt the philosophy of Pythagoras and vigorously observe the trying discipline instituted by the Samian sage. Pythagoras, the Samian. He performed the terrible task of 5 years of silence. How many of y'all could just not talk for 5 years? Hey, dope. You know what I mean? And this is that understanding they was putting their body through these things to get enlightenment. And look what he find out in the end. Like, man, ain't none of that did shit. He went 5 years of silence and didn't get nothing. Watch this. But even those masters of the art of healing and vigorously observed the trying discipline instituted by the Samian sage, who was Pythagoras. He performed the terrible task of 5 years of silence, which he endured cheerfully and without a murmur or complaint. He abstained from animal food. He abstained from them ham sandwiches. Where my boy Malachi Maga be? Huh? Where my boy Maga be at? In here eating animal sandwiches. We ain't no animal sandwiches. Wine and women. Huh? He abstained from animal food, wine, and women. Huh? How many of us go do all that? Everybody there already? You know you ain't. Stop lying. He said he lived upon fruits and herbs. Look at his dietary life. He right in line. He abstained from animal foods. What he eating, Cosmon? Fruits and herbs. He dressed only in linen garments of the plainest construction. My Essene and Nazarene brothers' ears should be ringling and tingling right now, because this sounds familiar, don't it? He abstained from animal food, wines and women's, lived upon fruits and herbs, dressed only in linen garments of the plainest construction, went barefoot, he was rooting, and with an uncovered head. He wore his hair and his beard uncut. Oh, wait a minute. Did he just explain the Nazarene way of life? 100%. Hold on. Wait. He didn't put a whole 50% of the Nazarene way of life. Just listening to it. Look, you abstain from animal food, wine and women, lived upon fruits and herbs, dressed only in linen garments of the plainest construction, went barefooted and with uncovered head, and he wore his hair and beard uncut. Hold on. He was especially distinguished for his beauty, his genial bearing, his uniform love and kindness, and his imperturbable, equanimity of temper. His imperturbable, which means his unshakable, evenness, equanimity of temper. You dig what I'm talking about? Say he was cool nigga. In these respects, he was the personal embodiment of the imaginary traits of the Christian Jesus. Damn. And he was no doubt the original of the pictures of the so-called Nazarene, now so venerated by uninformed professors of the Christian religion. Determined to devote himself to the pursuit of knowledge and the teaching of philosophy, he gave away his large patrimony to his poor relatives and went to Antioch, then a center of learning, but little less noted than Athens or Alexandria. There he began his great mission by teaching philosophy to a number of disciples and to the people. He entered the temple of Apollo of Daphne at Antioch and learned the mysteries of its priesthood. Philostratus describes the style of speaking adopted by Apollonius as thus: Apollonius used a style of speaking not elevated nor swollen in the language of poetry, nor yet one too refined, nor too Attic or all the way up in the top, always think he trying to talk over niggas. For whatever exceeded the Attic mediocrity was considered by him dissonant and unpleasant. So when you thought you was the big shit and you was talking over everybody's head, he was like, just like cussing motherfuckers would be. He made use of no fastidious nicety in the division of his discourse. He ain't putting no sugar on it. Nor any fine spun Christian religion by the drawing of the character of the man of the great knowledge, sanctity, and miraculous power. Therefore he formed Apollonius after the example of Christ and accommodated many things in the history of our Lord to Apollonius. This deep. Dang. Thus that we see that the very learned and pious Christian Hewitt was forced to admit the common identity of Apollonius and Jesus, the first described by Philostratus according to the memoirs of Damas, made in the 1st century, and the latter described by no one knows whom or when, but certainly not earlier than the beginning of the 3rd century of the so-called Christian era, as now contained in what is called the New Testament. This crazy. Let me see. As Christian writers have been forced to admit the identity of the respective narratives concerning Apollonius and Jesus, the only question that remains to be settled is which was the original author of the so-called Christian teachings. If this has not already been fully done, there remains very little yet to be done to complete the demonstration that Apollonius of Tyana was that author and not Jesus of Nazareth, nor Paul of Tarsus, as is wrongly claimed by the Christian writers. Damn. After stating many reasons for this conclusions, Dr. Ladner, than whom there is no higher Christian authority, says, it manifests, therefore, that Philostratus compared Apollonius and Pythagoras, but I do not see that he endeavored to make a rival with Jesus Christ. Philostratus has never once mentioned our Savior or the Christians, his followers, neither in his long work nor in the lives of sophists. Right? Watch what it. Now, the crazy part is he just really is making the author. He's digging his own grave with this Jesus stuff, right? Because, right, you got to assume that it is real instead of proving that it's real. Because philosophers who lived during this time never seen no savior, never seen no Christians. That proves why, you dig what I'm talking about? He wrote about Apollonius, who was there, and never wrote about Jesus. He seen philosophers, he killing himself because philosophers didn't see no Jesus and no Christians. But the same stories he applied to a living nigga of his time named Apollonius, and those he called them Pythagoreans, but we are really finding out are the Essenes. So really, you killing yourself with your own argument. It is manifest, therefore, that philosophers compared Apollonius to Pythagoras. But I do not see that he endeavored to make a rival with Jesus Christ. He didn't. Philostratus has never once mentioned our Savior or the Christians, his followers, neither in his long work nor in the lives of sophists, if it be his, as some learned men of the best judgment suppose, nor is there any hint that Apollonius anywhere in his wide travels met with any of the followers of Jesus. So they're in the same places, two biggest known names, doing the biggest things, and you ain't seen nam hide hair of Christians or Jeebus. Jeebus. You ain't seen no Jeebus. You ain't seen no Christians. But the people of that time have seen Apollonius and these Essenes. Crazy. That's crazy. You know what I mean? And anywhere in this wide travels met with any of the followers of Jesus. Apollonius never did. How? When they existed at the same time, it's because Jesus wasn't there and he was made up. Some 225 years later. There is not so much as an obscure or general description of any men met with by him whom any can suspect to be Christians of any denomination, either Catholics or heretics. They said they ain't there. We ain't nobody seen them. Remember, it's not until the time of Constantine that this religion is picked up on a mass scale. Huh? That's 225 years after the death of Apollonius. He says, whereas I think if Philostratus had written with the mind adverse to Jesus, so he's saying if Philostratus wanted to badmouth Jesus, if he had anything bad to say, he would have laid hold of some occasion to describe him and disparage his followers and his enemies to the gods and contemners of the mysteries and the solemnities, and different from all other men. But he didn't. He said them things about Apollonius. So he not banging on Christians because there ain't no Christians to bang on. He not banging on Jesus because there ain't no Jesus to bang on. So why would he even mention somebody who don't exist? Makes sense. You dig what I'm talking about? If there was a real person who was preaching against what these great minds and philosophers were teaching at that time, it brought up so much rigmarole between the crews and whatnot, you'd think somebody would have seen them or wrote about him. Huh? But we don't see it. And he said, look what he said. He's saying if he thought philosophers had a mind adverse to Jesus, so he's saying if he thinking philosophers didn't like the Jesus story, he would have laid hold to some occasion. He would have took the time to write about why, and he didn't like it. If all this rigmarole is going on, right? He didn't write about it. Why? Because he wasn't there. This is historically proven. Dang. Let it be remembered that Philostratus lived and wrote the life of Apollonius in the reign of Septimius Severus, about the beginning of the 3rd century AD. At that time, there could not possibly have been in existence any of the scriptural narratives of the life of Jesus Christ, so nearly analogous to the incidents and events which he related concerning Apollonius. So during the time of Septimius Severus, philosophers dropped all that stuff that was being talked about Jesus. He talked about it about Apollonius. Had there been such persons living as Jesus Christ and his apostles and their Christian followers during the time that Apollonius lived and labored throughout the then civilized world, Damas, who accompanied him during much of that time and who recorded everything worthy of special note, would have made some mention of the people, either favorably or unfavorably. That he did not do so is of itself sufficient proof that neither Jesus Christ, his apostles, nor the Christian religion had an existence either before or during that period. Oh! So the time that the Christian scholars are saying that Christianity sparked off with this guy Jesus, there is nobody during the time writing about it. Nobody. And even the people after it are applying the whole Jesus Christ narrative to this person, Apollonius. Is this why all that stuff just go missing in the 3rd century? 3rd, 4th century, all this stuff go missing. We just got some of this stuff. You dig what I'm talking about? That snuck in, and you know what I mean? It's through other writers' works that we find the works of other writers of the 1st century, 2nd century. Because they didn't know nothing about no Jeebus. They ain't know nothing about no Jeebus. Huh? What nobody said, help me, Jeebus. Well, nobody saying that. They were saying, help me, Apollonius. Dang, that's deep. That is deep. Damn. He said that he did not do so, that he didn't write about it. Is itself sufficient proof that neither Jesus Christ, his apostles, nor the Christian religion had an existence in Northeast Africa before or during that period, which was the only time in which they could have had a real existence. Oh, at all events, nothing can be more certain than the conclusion of Dr. Lardner that Philostratus did not write the life of Apollonius to disparage the Christian religion. But Dr. Lardner is not content to make that fatal acknowledgement of the Christian plagiarism of the life and labors of Apollonius, but makes an equally fatal acknowledgement in the other direction. In disagreeing with Cudworth, Hewitt, and others as to the life of Apollonius by Philostratus having been written to oppose Christianity, Dr. Lardner says, with due submission, I do not think that Apollonius was a man of so great importance as is here supposed, for it does not appear that any adversaries of the Christians, neither Celsus or Porphyry, or any other before Heracles, at the beginning of the 4th century, under Diocletian's persecution, ever took any notice of him in any of their any of their arguments. But what he's actually not telling you is all these are early Christian fathers, and they never were. They were already duped. They don't mention him either. Early Christian fathers. Never took any notice of him. Probably because there wasn't no documents left. The Ante-Nicene Council had happened. Nor do I know that he has been once mentioned by any Christian writers of the first 2 centuries, but they wouldn't be mentioned by Christian writers because wasn't no Christians. So you're right, they don't write about it. When I first met with the observation of Cudworth herein before given, I was very much surprised considering the silence of all the early antiquity. If this observation were right, I should have expected to find frequent mention of Apollonius in the history of St. John. But remember what he just admitted. And the other apostles of Christ. But there is none, because there were none. Damn, and he just admitted that the life that they telling about John is him after he retired onto the Isle of Patmos, where John supposedly went. So no wonder we don't see it, because Apollonius didn't write it. We had in that space of time diverse learned men, some of them as eminent for extensive literature as any men that ever lived, as Justin, Tatian, Barsanius, the Syrian, Clement of Alexandria, Irenaeus, Julius Africanus, Tertullian, Minucius Felix, not to insist on Clement of Rome, Ignatius, or Polycarp, or the histories of them. Of all these, we have some remains. They lived in the first 2 centuries or the beginning of the 3rd, but of Apollonius, they have not taken the least notice. Okay. Let's go and see what they say. Very true, Dr. Lardner. And why did they not do so? That total silence on the part of those authors of the 1st and 2nd centuries regarding so eminent a philosopher and teacher as Apollonius of Tyana can be accounted for upon but one theory. And that will show that it was a necessity to utterly ignore Apollonius and his philosophical and religious teachings in order that the Christian religion could gain a foothold to usurp the field he had so grandly occupied. Dang. Of all the authors named by Dr. Lardner, the complete works of none of them have come down to us. Besides the fragmentary remains of the works of the best 3 centuries that have reached us, of the first 3 centuries, that have reached us, have had to pass through the hands of Eusebius, Pope Sylvester I, and their coadjutors and successors, who, from the beginning of the 4th century downward to the time when the art of printing ended, were so assiduously engaged in interpolating, mutilating, and destroying every trace of the evidence within their reach that showed that the real origin and nature of the Christian religion, it should have struck the attention of Dr. Lardner with vastly greater force that nowhere in the books of the New Testament is there a single mention made of Apollonius, if we accept in a few verses of 1 Corinthians, where it says, "For a while one saith, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos. Are ye not carnal? Who then is Paul, and who Apollos, but ministers by whom ye believed, even as the Lord gave to every man? I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase." And they say that's in hold on, let's look this up. Where is this at? In Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. Let's look this up real quick. What does it say? 1 Corinthians what? I don't think it gave a verse. Well, one saith, I am Paul, and another, I am Apollos. Let's see. Let's just look real quick. Let's go to 1. Let's go. Wait a minute. No, this is no. I want to go back. It's 3. Here you go. Let's just start at 3 and 3. For ye are yet carnal, for whereas there is among you envying and strife and divisions, are ye not carnal and walk as men? Hold on, let me see. Where's the let's jump that in there too. So this is not Jeebus talking. For while one saith, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos. Let's look that up. What did it say? Apollos, given by Apollo, a learned Jew from Alexandria and mighty in the scriptures, who became a Christian and a teacher of Christianity. Uh-oh. Mm. Uh-uh. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born in Alexandria, eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus. Oh. Oh. I am Apollos. Are ye not carnal? Who then is Paul and who is Apollos but ministers, by whom ye believed, even as the Lord gave to every man? I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. This is 1 Corinthians 3, 5, and 6. That's dope. In a very ancient manuscript of this epistle found in the monastery of France by a Huguenot soldier called the Codex Visa, the name is not Apollos but Apollonius. What? But even this positive clue to the identity of Apollonius with the St. Paul of the Christians was attempted to be obliterated by substituting Apollos for Apollonius as it originally stood. Dang! This studied avoidance. This is crazy. This is crazy. This studied avoidance of all mention of Apollonius in the Christian scriptures is positive proof that his recognition in any way, whatever, by the authors of Christianity would be fatal to their scheme of deception and fraud. Look at this. Look at this. We wondered they had not had the cunning to obliterate that one reference to the preaching and teaching of Apollonius and the admission that his teaching was in perfect accord with the teachings attributed to St. Paul. It is an old saying that liars should have good memories. This was never more apparent than in the oversight of not eliminating that telltale confession from the first epistle to the Corinthians. There it stands, and there it will stand, thanks to the art of printing, to confound these Christian enemies of truth and make clear the fraud they are upholding. Dr. Lardner further says, the first Christian writers who has mentioned him, Apollonius, so far as I can recollect, is Origen. In his books against Celsus, right? This is why we get Celsus, and Origen is the last name. This is the only reason we even get Celsus, because Origen's books written against Celsus. It's through Origen's work that we get the remnants of Celsus. He don't exist nowhere else. So Origen is the last nigga that had his work. We know he tore it up. And we're going to look and see what Origen got to say about this. Let's get to reading some more. Let's read a little. Let's go heavy a little bit. He who would know whether magic has any power over philosophers. Wait a minute. The first Christian writer who has mentioned him, Apollonius, so far as I can recollect, is Origen in his books against Celsus, written not long before the middle of the 3rd century, when he says, "He who would know whether magic has any power over philosophers may read the memoirs of the Morganes concerning Apollonius of Tyana, both a magician and a philosopher, in which Morganes, who was not a Christian but a philosopher, says that some and no inconsiderable philosophers were taken by the magical art of Apollonius and came to him as a magician. Among them, I suppose he means Euphrates, who may be the Phrates that he's talking about, he got the document from, and a certain Epicurean. But we can affirm upon the ground of our own experience that they who worship the God overall through Jesus Christ and live according to the gospel and pray as they ought to do day and night have no reason to fear anything from magic. So Origen, right, who is also accredited as an early Christian writer, is led to speak in answer to some things in Celsus, but it does not appear that Celsus had at all mentioned either Apollonius or his historian. Apollonius is mentioned by Lucian also, but what he says of him is far from being to his advantage, but he is mentioned. He's there. He is all, but no Jeebus. He is also mentioned by Apuleius, who was contemporary with Lucian, nor is there any other older author now extant where he is mentioned, which must be reckoned an argument of his great obscurity till he was set up by Philostratus. After that time, Apollonius is taken notice of by many, as Arnobius and Lactantius and Eusebius, who were led to observe upon Heracles, whose whole book against the Christians was founded on the memoirs of Philostratus. He is afterwards mentioned again by Augustine and other Christian writers, and he is mentioned several times by the writers of Augustine history who flourished in the time of Diocletian or soon afterwards, and by Dion Cassius and by Eunapius, and who commends the history of Philostratus, but says that instead of entitling it the life of Apollonius, he might have called it the peregrination of a god among men. Oh shit. He might have called it the peregrination of a god among men. Look at this. No Jesus, but we find an Apollonius, even though they're trying to wipe it out. Dudes like Dion Cassius and Eunapius and Philostratus, they find in this history and they printing it. And then we go through time, we find that many of their works have been destroyed. But other people have caught the work and wrote it in their stuff, either bad mouthing or you dig what I'm talking about, the writer at the time, like they mentioned right here, that Origen was against Celsus, but Heracles wrote a book bigging up Philostratus. Now, it must not be forgotten, the writings of Celsus were lost or destroyed long since. Nothing being known of what they were, except as Origen has reported them. We only get Celsus's work through Origen. So you'd have to read Origin to know Celsus. Whether Celsus did or did not mention Apollonius is a matter of no consequence. Celsus did not write until nearly a century after the death of Apollonius, and never have met with the memoirs of Damas or Mariganes concerning Apollonius that Lucian and Apellius, who wrote while Apollonius still lived or soon after his death, should have mentioned him insufficient to establish his historical existence. Philostratus had not then come into possession of the memoirs of Damas, Mariganes, and Maximus of Aegis, and the history of the life and labors of Apollonius had been suppressed, no doubt, by the influence of the priesthoods of Greece and Rome. Dang, this is deep. The desire of the cultured empress Julia Domna to learn the history of Apollonius shows that he was not unknown to fame as a distinguished philosopher as late as the beginning of the 3rd century, when Philostratus wrote his life of Apollonius. As admitted by Dr. Lardner, all through the 3rd century, there was frequent mention of his name and teachings. In the beginning of Christianity, we find the teaching and life of Apollonius. That's during the time that this so-called Jesus should have been mentioned. They mentioned in Apollonius. But it was not until Heracles, in the beginning of the 4th century, boldly charged upon the Christian priesthood their plagiarism of the teachings and works of Apollonius, that later found it necessary to set every means at work that could in any way help to conceal the great truth that Heracles proclaimed with such portentous force. Let's go like this up. It is true that no one knows exactly what it was that Heracles wrote for Eusebius, who took upon himself the task of destroying the testimony of Heracles, took precious good care to destroy the work of his formidable opponent, and to give his own version of the matter instead. The reply of Eusebius to Heracles has come down to us. Why has not Heracles' arrangement of the Christian priesthood also come down to us? Let that priesthood answer. We can in no way more effectually show the effect which the life of Apollonius of Tyana by Philostratus had upon the Christian priesthood and clergy than to cite the observations of Dr. S. Parker, D.D., Archdeacon of the Canterbury, published 1681. We copy it from Dr. Lardner's work. They are as follows. But the man of wonders is Apollonius of Tyana, of whom they boast, and I insult as the true heathen Messiah, in that he wrought not as Vespasian did, 1 or 2 chance miracles, but his whole life was all prodigy and equal to our Savior's, both for the number and the wonder of his works. Look at this. But here, and this is a believer in Jesus, talking about Apollonius of Tyana during the time where Jesus is supposed to be living. He's saying everything that Jesus is supposed to have did is really the heathen Messiah, Apollonius. But here we have in part shown what undoubted records we have of the life of Jesus, whereas all the credit of Apollonius, his history, depends upon the authority of one single man, who besides that he lived 100 years after him, ventured nothing, Now remember, we don't get no stories of Jesus till 325 years. Uh-oh. And we see him in Vespasian's papers. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. How could they know that? Uh-oh. Yeah, dude didn't know that, did he? His history depends upon the authority of one single man, blah, 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 blah. But only composed it in his study, thereby as appears from his frequent digressions to take occasion of communicating to the world all the learning he had raked together. Nay, so far was he from incurring any loss by the work that he was set upon it by a great empress whose religious zeal in the cause would be sure to see him well rewarded. So this is where they talking about the empress had the works of Apollonius rewritten, right? And though he made use of the commentaries of Damas, the inseparable companion of Apollonius, yet he confesses that Damas himself never published his commentaries, but that a friend of Damas communicated them to the empress, which himself probably might have forged, as is common in courts, to pick her pocket. But we find out that ain't what was written. However, as for Damas himself, it is evident from Philostratus, his whole story, that he was a very simple man, and that Apollonius only picked him up as a fit Sancho Panza to exercise his wit upon, so that upon all occasions we find him not only baffling the esquires in disputes, but breaking jest upon him, which he always takes with much thankfulness and more humility, still admiring his master's wisdom, but much more his wit. But after all, what the story of Damas was, or whether there was ever any such story, we have no account unless from Philostratus himself. But Philostratus said it was. And therefore, we must resolve that in all into his own authority alone. And there it is evident. Well, it's not all on his own. We have the writers of Vespasian. And then he tied it to the story of Josephus, which, you dig what I'm talking about? We didn't even know that was proven that. Nobody knew that. That's why this book is dope. You dig what I'm talking about? It's letting us look back in time to he proving his point. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But yeah, this dude didn't know nothing about the writings of Vespasian. And there it is evident that Apollonius was neither a god nor a divine man. That's what but he says so, as his friends boasted, nor a magician or conjurer, as his enemies imagined, but a mere fanatic and pedantic Pythagorean, who, for the honor of his sect, traveled, as many others have done, into all parts of the world. And when he returned home, told his countrymen that all men renowned for wisdom all the world over were of the sect of Pythagoreans. And then, for advancement of their authority, told strange and prodigious tales of their wonder-working power. Though here either he or his historian has acquitted himself so awkwardly as utterly to spoil the tale and defeat the design. This Eusebius has shown at large in his book against Heracles by taking to pieces all parts of the story and discovering all its flaws and incoherences. Now, we only get Heracles through Eusebius, just like we only get Celsus through Origin. Crazy part is Eusebius and Origen are right around the same time, 3rd century, 4th century, excuse me. Huh? And this nigga got a reason. He worked for the church to break down this nigga work, Heracles, and then destroy it. Because we don't see it no more. We only know Heracles existed because Eusebius wrote about it. Now, if Eusebius didn't have no reason to fight against the story of Jehovih, you dig what I'm talking about? He wouldn't have, but he did. So he must have had a reason. Why? We find out because he was one of them church niggas. He was a Jehovah and was trying to hold up that lie. So he had to go against what was well known at that time, which was Heracles, who was taking down the story of Jehovah because he was telling you about the real Apollonius. Damn. This is crazy. This you see, and we ain't seen Heracles since. Eusebius and the church get their hands on it, stuff go missing. Just like today with the Vatican. Or what's the Vatican little homeboys called? The Smithsonian. Yeah. The Vatican or the Smithsonian get their hands on your stuff. Boy, it is gone. You might as well just don't even say it exists no more. They're gonna hide that thing in an underground bunker, so it's gonna be next to hell. You think what I'm talking about? You might as well just say it don't exist no more when the Smithsonian or the Vatican get their hands on anything. It is, for the most part, destroyed. You know? Still today, same thing going on. But I shall content myself with proving. Now you're going to throw his nose in the air. You dig for Jehovah's. For Jehovah's. But I shall content myself with proving the vanity of the whole from the notorious falsehood of one particular narration, upon which depends all that extraordinary power which he pretends to. Now, nobody wrote about Jesus, but they wrote about Apollonius, and he's trying to say, well, you can only take one guy. Well, find one guy for Jesus. Find one during the same time. We got a whole bunch of people who go on after and talk about Apollonius. But you saying, oh, we can only take one guy's observation of this guy, Apollonius, from Philastratus, who actually lived during the time, you know? But that don't mean Jehovah's didn't. Well, then why ain't he writing about Jehovah's? But you trying to take everything that we proven historically was written about Apollonius and apply it to your Jehovah's, who is during the same time, but nobody writes about him. Uh-oh. But I shall content myself with proving the vanity of the whole from the notorious falsehood of one particular narration, which depends all that extraordinary power, which he pretends to, and that is his conversation with the Indian Brahmins, from whom, if we may believe this account of himself, be learned all that he could do, more than the common philosophers of Greece. And if this prove a romance, all the rest of the history must avoidably follow its fortune, and we could say the same for Jesus. Here, some of the most trivial things related by Damas are cited to show that the Brahmins of India imparted nothing worth knowing to Apollonius. And then he continues, which is a lie, and remember, he said he had the doctrine of Christos and the doctrine of Buddha. Or Buddha, Christos, same thing. And that is the most I can make of the story, though I know that Hutius is of opinion that all the substantial miracles are stolen out of the Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles, and that for the most part in the words and phrases of St. Luke. And he has endeavored to make good by a great variety of parallel instances and thinks it a manifest discovery both of the vanity of Philostratus and the imposture of Apollonius, where he is only adorned with borrowed feathers, but a great accession to the credit of our Savior, that when his enemies would frame the idea of a divine man, they were forced to steal their best feathers from this picture. Funny part is that's exactly the opposite of what happened. It's exactly the opposite. Apollonius did all the work, and then they created this guy Jesus to get created this guy Jesus and took the life of Apollonius and applied it to him. So exactly what he's saying, the opposite happened. So that he says it was no wonder that Heracles should so confidently compare the miracles of Apollonius to those of Jesus, when those of Jesus were so little disguised, with so little disguise clapped upon Apollonius. Exactly. They copied Apollonius. This were a pretty discovery if it stood upon good grounds, but alas, most of the parallelisms are so forced or so slender or so far-fetched that it were easy to make as many and as probable between any other histories whatever. And indeed, in such a design as this of Philostratus, viz., to make up a story as full of strange things as he could contrive, it was scarcely possible not to have hit upon some of the things, like some of those, hold on, where am I at? Things like some of those miracles which are recorded in the Gospels. So this seems like early Christian apologism. Dang. He's saying anybody could have done this stuff, man. So if Philostratus is putting together a story, he would, he's gonna have to put in some of these stories that were put out here by Luke and stuff. Yeah, nah, nigga, y'all made up the life of Jesus. They made it up and amalgamated that life and took part of the works of Apollonius. Crazy part is the other people did this stuff. Apollonius was right. This ain't nothing special. Whole bunch of good prophets and bad prophets did everything Jesus did. You know what I mean? That's the crazy part. This is how I know Apollonius is telling the truth. So that in some few of them, there may be some resemblance, as particularly there seems to be in that Gadarene demonic and the Corcyraean youth. Yet it is very obvious to apprehend that this might happen not by design, but by chance. Oh, they're just saying it happened by chance. And whereas Hutius will needs have it that Philostratus has stolen not only the stories, but the very words of St. Luke. I find no instances of it, only in this one relation. I find no instances of it, but only this one time. Man, this is so cap, man. Dang, man. Christianity cap. All the religions is cap. No gods, no saviors, no messiahs, no middleman for us over here, man. Don't it feel good? And whereas Hutius needs it, he said, I find no instances of him stealing St. Luke words, but only in one relation, where they both, it seems, use the word Basanician. And this they might easily do without theft or imitation, it being the common Greek word that signifies torment. So that they could no more avoid that in Greek, that we could this in rendering it into English. But wait a minute, he said he spoke Samaritan. Samaritan Hebrew. He ain't speak no Greek. Now he's setting aside this one story. It didn't happen no other time, but this one time. I find no resemblance between the histories of Philostratus and that of the Gospels, that I scarce know any two stories more unalike. For it is obvious to any man that reads Philostratus that his whole design was to follow the train of the old heathen mythology, and that is the bottom of his folly by his story to gain historical credit to the fables of the poets. So it is very true and just censor which Ludovicus Vives has given of him, that as he had endeavored to imitate Homer, so he had abundantly outlied him. For there is scarcely anything extraordinary reported in the whole story in which he does not apparently design either to verify or to rectify some of the blind ballad singers' tales, but especially in conjuring Achilles out of his tomb and discoursing with him about the old stories that were told of the Trojan War. And yet, after all, few of Apollonius' miracles are sufficiently vouched, even in his own. Few of Apollonius' miracles are sufficiently vouched, even in his own history. The last that I mentioned, man, we missing a part. Anyways, believe thee, O Tinius, and being asked of his companions the meaning of his transport, why says he, do you not see Apollonius? They answered him, no, but they would be glad to give all the world if they could. It is true, says he, for he only appears to me for my satisfaction, and he is invisible to all others. And then he tells them what he had said to him in his sleep concerning the state of souls. This poor account of the dream and vision of an overwatched boy is all that his great story affords to vie with our Savior's resurrection. And now, upon the review of this whole story, it seems evident to me that this man was so far from being endowed with an extraordinary divine power that he does not deserve the reputation of an ordinary conjurer. Now, this is dog writing against him. You know, this Jeebus homeboy. For Hutius, now, and he talking really basically the forefather to the Aquarian gospel. That's what they talk about. When the Aquarian gospel, they tell you that these epistles came from ancient India, Hindustan. For through Hutius was taking some pains to prove him so, yet he gives no evidence of it besides the opinion of the common people. And if that were enough to make a conjurer, there is no man of an odd and singular humor, as Apollonius affected to be, who is not so thought of by the common people. And therefore, when he was accused for it before Domitian, the emperor. Now remember, this is recorded history. As much as he wanted to talk against Apollonius, he is recorded in history in the court of the Emperor Domitian. Right? He's recorded in history, right? During the time of Herod. He's recorded in history by the Roman Emperor Vespasian. So as much as they try to say he didn't exist, he did exist. Nobody seen Jesus, though. Let that sink in. And therefore, when he was accused for it before Domitian, the emperor, upon coming to hear the cause, slighted both him and his accusers and dismissed him from the court for an idle and fantastic fellow. It is manifest from the whole series of his history that he is a very vain man and affected to be thought something extraordinary, and so wandered all the world over in an odd garb to be gazed at and admired, and made himself considerable in that age by wit, impudence, and flattery, of all which he had competent share. And for his wonder-working faculty, which he needs pretend to, he fetched that as far as the East Indies, that is, the farthest off, as he thought, from computation. And yet the account which he has given of those parts is so grossly fabulous that alone convicts his whole life of imposture and impudence. Such was the consternation produced by the translation of Philostratus' Life of Apollonius of Tyana into the modern tongues of Europe, that Christians, both Catholic and Protestant, seem to have cast discretion to the winds. Ooh, dang. Dang. What happened? Such was the consternation produced by the translations of Philostratus' Life of Apollonius of Tyana. So when he put out the Apollonius of Tyana, niggas start tripping. And that was one nigga hating against Philostratus, but they couldn't do nothing with it because he had the text. Into the modern tongues of Europe, that Christians, both Catholic and Protestant, seem to have cast discretion to the winds and to have floundered into the bog from which it was their chief aim to escape. It will be seen that neither Dr. Parker, Hewitt, nor Dr. Lardner so much as designed to notice the real and undeniable facts connected with the life and labors of Apollonius, but spent all their ingenuity in making the most of the fictions or exaggerated recitals which were so common in accompaniment of ancient historical narratives, not one of which does not mingle the marvelous with the well authenticated events which constitute the groundwork and object of all ancient historical records. This avoidance of all notice of the philosophical and religious teachings of Apollonius by those learned theologians shows, as nothing else could, their consciousness that Apollonius was really the Jesus, Paul, and John of the New Testament scriptures. Dang. We have shown that Apollonius for several years taught and preached at Antioch and converted many who were strangers to this knowledge to a belief in his doctrines. It was owing to his great renown as a spiritual medium and teacher acquired at Antioch that certain Jews who had become acquainted with his gifts as a medium and the remarkable manifestations of spirit power occurring through him prevailed upon him to go to Jerusalem. This visit, he tells us, he made to Jerusalem when he was just 33 years of age, which, mind you, is really the time that they say Jesus died is right around this time. He said he went when he was 33, right? But that would have been roughly 35 BC, 2 years after the so-called time that Jesus was already dead. So, not saying that it didn't happen for Apollonius, it did. But it would have been 2 years after Jesus had already been dead. This visit, he tells us, he made to Jerusalem when he was just 33 years of age, the very age at which it is alleged that Jesus began his heaven-appointed mission. He tells us he was then held upon his entrance into that city by the people, as it is alleged the entrance of Jesus of Nazareth was held, with hosannas and songs of praise to one who came in the name of the Lord. He refers, no doubt, to the following portion, Matthew 9 and 21. And the multitude that went before and followed cried, Hosanna to the Son of David, of Dawood, beloved. To the Son of the Beloved. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And when he came into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, who is this? And the multitude said, this is Jesus, the prophet, the prophet of Nazareth of Galilee. It is true that Apollonius says, hold on, let me go back, let me drop this down here. It is true that Apollonius says nothing of his experience at the hands of the Jewish priesthood, and we are left to infer that their treatment of him was less agreeable to him than his reception by the multitude. It is true that there is no historical mention extant of this visit of Apollonius to Jerusalem, and therefore we may justly conclude that the writer of the gospel according to Matthew, after making use of such a historical manuscript to serve his purpose of robbing Apollonius of his duly acquired fame by substituting the mythical Jesus in his stead, took special care to destroy the historical original. That Apollonius never returned to Jerusalem until he did so 32 years afterward, as the oracle in Vespasian's camp at the overthrow of Jerusalem would indicate that the usage he had received at the hands of the Jewish priesthood on his first visit was such as to deter him again from placing himself in their power. As strong evidence the correctness of his conjecture, it is well to note that Judea was the only civilized country that Apollonius did not visit, and throughout which he did not preach, and in which he did not receive the fraternal reception of every order of priesthood. That Damas made no record of this visit of Apollonius to Jerusalem may be reasonably accounted for by the facts that it was made before Damas began his memoirs. And in all probability, Apollonius was too much disgusted with the narrow bigotry of the Jewish hierarchy to inform Damas about it. Apollonius has not Apollonius has not told us what followed his joyous reception by the people of Jerusalem. The writers who have made use of that event to exalt their mythical man god say regarding the latter, and the blind and the lame came to him in the temple and he healed them. Sounds like something Apollonius would do. And it sounds like what he been doing the whole time. You know what I mean? They don't never say they say a magician. He do some wonderful things, right? Okay. Nobody is denying that though. And they not denying that he was there and he did it. And when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying in the temple and saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were sore displeased and said unto him, hearest thou what they say? This is probably what really happened to Apollonius. And Jesus saith unto them, yea, have ye never read, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings, thou hast perfected praise? And he left them and went out of the city into Bethany, and he lodged there. How much of that is taken from the historical memoirs of Apollonius? We may not certainly know, but nothing is more thoroughly authenticated than the fact that Apollonius was a wonderful healing medium, that he restored sight to the blind, strength to the lame, health to the sick, life to the apparently dead, and prophesied that with an accuracy that astonished the then civilized world. These are all recorded historically. That he did all these things at Jerusalem is most probable, if not certain. And thus, through the return of the spirit of Apollonius, we have a chapter of history revived that the writers of the Christian scriptures suppose they had entirely obliterated from its records. Dang. That's Apollonius of Tyana. Dang, we 3 hours in. Dang. Let me see. We 3 hours in. Let's get some shout outs, man. We gonna get up out of here, man. Who we got up in this thing? Let me see. We got young Moses face. Young Moses Cosmon. Young Abraham Beard Cosmon. Young Elijah in the house. Yahweh in the house. Selah Shalom. You did what I'm talking about in the hitty. Y'all go over there and subscribe to Selah Shalom TV. Sub, like, share, man. Y'all hit that like button while y'all ain't here, man. Sub, like, share. Go to the go to Cosmon Cal 1 on Cash App. You did what I'm talking about. Subscribe, like and share the channel. You did what I'm talking about. Support the channel and share the live. Like it up. You did what I'm talking about. Hit that like button. It's free. Don't cost niggas nothing. You did what I'm talking about. Share that live, boy. Let's get this thing out here, man. This Jehovah Chronicles lesson 48, man. Just give shout outs to who up in here. Young Dreadful. We got Elijah 7, Selah Shalom, Yahweh up in this thing, man. Shout out to the Creator Gang in the house. Prince Yahuda, Levi, Amakai, Ben Yisrael. God damn, you got 30 names. Boy, I love you, boy. That's my boy Prince Yahuda in the house. You dig what I'm talking about? Communicator. Yaqib, Charahaya, Eliya, Yasharum. Boy, you got a hellified name, boy. 1 Corinthians 3 and 6. That's right. We was up in there. Set apart living. My big sister better than your big sister. You did what I'm talking about. Shout out to everybody who came through. Fritz. Fritz is in the house. Fritz Foxwell. You did what I'm talking about. Shout out to the homie. Sister Stephanie Randall, Sister Tikva is in the house. You did what I'm talking about. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. Freedom Born Chimedza. You did what I'm talking about. Yep. Nazarene Essene Faithis. in the house. You dig what I'm talking about? Shout out to everybody in the house, man. Let's get a little music real quick while we get up out of here. You dig what I'm talking about? Let's turn it up a little bit. Yeah, Nazarene Scene Faith is Bronze Yoke in the house, man. Somebody got to teach me how to give out these blues, man. Let me see. We can hook some people up with some blue. See what I'm talking about? Yeah, hit them lights. Elizabeth Weaver, Lawrence Burton. Thanks for everybody coming through, man. Hey. Peace to everybody in the house. Creative Gang is in the house. I think we're going to have to come back and read Diamonds. This Timothy. Now, this is the real, true Timothy of your Bible. We done found out who Paul was. We done found out who Jesus was. And we done found out who John was on the real. Uh-oh. This deep. You dig what I'm talking about? This deep. I think we're going to get back into this probably tomorrow. We're going to go hard tomorrow. You dig what I'm talking about? Get into Thomas. Get into Herod. Herod, you know Herod gonna be deep. You dig what I'm talking about? Herod gonna clear up that stuff about the story of Paul. Remember in front of Agrippa? You dig what I'm talking about? He gonna clear up that. We gonna get into Origin too. You know what I mean? Hopefully, man, everybody learned a little something about the historic nature of Christianity. Man, we had a spirit come back almost 2,000 years old and spill the beans, believe it or not. He proven it historically with historical documents. Why? Because he was there. You can hate him all you want to, not believe it, but he bringing it out. You dig what I'm talking about? This is crazy. You dig what I'm talking about? This one is nuts. We're going to have to call this Antiquity Unveiled Part 1. Because there's some other dudes in here, man, we got to get into. So we just going to have to, sit back and build on, let it is what it is. I think that's enough for this one. You dig what I'm talking about? We're going to call this Antiquity Unveiled. We're going to drop something every day this week. Keep this thing rolling, man. This is number 48. Jehovah Chronicles. You know what I mean? It's the homie. Cosmonian. About to throw, you know what I mean? Throw my moon boots on. You dig what I'm talking about? My Ethereum goggles, you dig what I'm talking about? My Otavan driving gloves, you dig what I'm talking about? Gassed up on Jaja juice, you dig what I'm talking about? And I'm about to blast off. Shout to everybody who came through, man. Shout to the Creative Gang. Peace to all the righteous gods and Nirvanian goddesses. You dig what I'm talking about? And at all times, I just want you to breathe in. Let the light in. So I'm Cosma, and I'm out.
and oh yeah, put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh, it's that Josephus, that chow mein, that palpable, that towel mein, since sun south in the arc of Wayne. My brain moving like Tao saying, so ass above, it's so below, that up and that down thing. This flow is atmospherian, I call that a ground game. See, water is knowledge, so if I'm teaching, you're learning. So how your God make a sun without vortexing current? See, the pattern is ponic, I'm reaching out for my people. Oh, watch me flow through your speakers, you feel the force of the ethers. And when the force gets the equal, I'm taking off like an eagle. Police popped the pastor yesterday for pushing put equal. My DNA is Moshe. Mix that thing with higher water. My spirit rate is OTN. It's just a higher order. Got more light than Kavita. Rap a lot just like Tila. Went from sinner to saint. Shout out my big homie Sela. Got more torque than a sports car. Got more work than a door stop. In the 4 million I make, I'm giving the Dr. Uma. Oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Super 7 in my rites and ceremonies. I'm married to Jehovah, holy matrimony. Confucius say, in the words of Caillou, before you hit the tomb, be a bridegroom. Only got one question for Miss Susan B. On how to last Ahu when it's now a ennui. Blame my inspiration, I'm just thinking thoughts. But in the way of God's, we gon' keep it short. Why Jesus wanna kill me, Matthew 10:34. Just a couple questions that I'm needing to know. Oh, watch me flow, it's so potent. Set the vortex in motion. Super 7, I'm floating across the Aegean Ocean. Oh, you a Muslim now, so I guess you making salat. Well, I'm a Israelite, I'ma make him at the Shabbat. Got Moses on the bumper, super slap off in my spaceship photosphere. So I stay lit, peace and light to the faith is so yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you breathing rarefied air, oh yeah.
I just had a crazy vision for that video. Like, all of us was in the video and shit, you know what I mean? I just had a vision of all of us in the video for the Super 7 joint, you know what I mean?